members, I decided to change the topic, the subject of my speech to not only Spanish, but why learning a second language is important. So not only Spanish. I do speak Spanish as first language and English as second language. So I decided to share my experiences and the way I feel. I moved to the US exactly 8 years ago, this month, 8 years ago. And 3 years ago, I started to teach Spanish. And it's a really nice experience to teach my first language and also to learn a second language at the same time. And not only to learn, but to practice it, because I could learn English in Mexico, but until I moved to the States, that's when on a daily basis I had to speak the language, and I, little by little, started to feel more and more comfortable. So we're gonna start with these words. Okay, well, I'm gonna show you some facts. Oh, I just forgot to plug the USB, that's why.
No, I did that last one.
Give me 1 second. But, well, we're gonna start off with some important facts about languages. Do you know how many languages are spoken worldwide?
7,099.
7,099 languages worldwide. I didn't even have an idea until I did some research for my speech. So one important thing about this is number is changing. Why does it change? It's because the language per se changes, but also the people who research on languages are working more and finding more languages. So that was an important thing. One more important fact about languages is a third part of the languages are endangered. Why? Because when is a language in danger? When around 1,000 people or less speak the language, then the language is considered endangered. And a third fact also is 23 languages from all these 7,099 languages compound or account for more than half of the world's population. That was another really interesting thing. And I did, in my research, I found out also, if you see in this list here, China is the first language, the Chinese, of course, where more than 1 billion people speak the language, and more than 37 countries speak Chinese. And you see all the variations of the Chinese. Spanish comes second, it's 43.7 million people. And then you see English, 372 million people. This is first language speakers. So for second language speakers, that's when the people who learn another language, it's not in this list, but I found out that more than 600 million people learned English. And it's the language that has more second speakers. That was a really interesting fact. So when you summarize or when you compound first speakers and second speakers, and you found out that 1 billion of people speak Chinese, and then in second place comes English. That was a very interesting fact. Also, the fact that nearly 2/3 of languages are from Africa and Asia. That was another part of the information, or some of the information that I found out. And as you can see here, as you can see here, there are so many languages here. Even I took my citizenship test, and one of the questions was how many Native American languages there are. And there are so many that I didn't have an idea. And so to mention only a few in the US, Pueblo, Apache, and many, many other languages here. But maybe because those languages, not a lot of people speak them, right? I'm not sure if those are endangered, but it's interesting to know how many languages are, and also that 2/3 of the languages are only from Africa and Asia. That was another interesting part. So why learning a new languages? Well, as I mentioned before, we have 350 languages only in the US. So in US homes, people speak 350 languages. That's one reason why we need to learn, why it was important to learn. Not to mention for traveling, because for traveling, when we travel somewhere, not all the people speak a foreign language. They prefer to speak their native language. So it makes it easier for global businesses. Also, for kids, their brains are trained differently when they learn a second language. And not to mention advantages at work. So I'm gonna get you started with Spanish, and I'm gonna show you how to say I. You say yo, so it sounds like yo, you know, in English. And tú, like you, tú. So what I'm gonna share is yo soy Luis. Yo vivo en Phoenix. Y yo trabajo para US Foods. So you can see it's easy to just introduce yourself and break the ice and start making conversations and discovering more and more, right? And I'm going to leave you with two thoughts about why learning is important, a language is important. Because learning a language is not only about learning grammar and vocabulary. You learn new sounds, new expressions, and also new ways of seeing things. That was a really interesting point. And the second one is, and last one, and I'm going to leave you with this one, different languages protect and nourish the growth of different cultures, where different pathways of human knowledge can be discovered. They certainly make life richer for those who know more than one of them. That's my speech. And I hope you get I hope I share the idea of why speaking a second language is very beautiful.